Hey everyone, welcome back. So, sooner or later, it happens to all of us. Your car battery dies. You head to the store, and suddenly you're staring at two options: the good old traditional lead acid battery and this other thing called an AGM. What in the world is the difference? And more importantly, which one should you actually buy? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break it all down and demystify this stuff so you can make the right call. And yeah, if you've ever stood there scratching your head, wondering what those three little letters, AGM, even mean, you are definitely not alone. I mean, let's be real. Most of us just want a battery that starts the car, right? So let's figure out what AGM really means for your car's performance and, of course, for your wallet.
Okay, so first things first, what even is an AGM battery? Let's peel back the label and see what kind of tech is hiding inside.
All right, AGM stands for Absorbent Glass Mat. Now, here's the most important thing to get right off the bat. It is still a lead-acid battery. The basic chemistry is the same. The huge game-changing difference is how it holds onto that electrolyte fluid, that mix of acid and water. Instead of it just sloshing around inside, it's all soaked up into these superfine fiberglass mats.
Probably the easiest way to think about this is to picture a sponge. The fiberglass mat is basically a high-tech sponge that's completely saturated with the battery acid. Then that sponge is packed in there super tightly, sandwiched right between the lead plates. It creates this really solid, stable core inside the battery. And because of that sponge design, you get some pretty awesome practical benefits. For one, since all the acid is locked up, the battery is totally spill-proof. You could literally mount it on its side and it wouldn't care. That tight packing also makes it incredibly resistant to vibration. And because it's sealed, you never, ever have to pop the caps to check the water. It's a true set-it-and-forget-it kind of deal. All right, so now we get what an AGM is all about. Let's put it in the ring, head-to-head, with the traditional, old-school lead-acid battery that most of us have been using for decades. When you boil it all down, it really comes down to this one single thing. In an AGM, the acid is soaked up and held still in that mat. In a traditional battery, it's just a free-flowing liquid sloshing around. And that one little design choice? It's the reason for pretty much every other difference between these two batteries, from how they perform to how long they last, and even how much they cost. And this table really lays out the trade-offs perfectly. You can see right away, AGM batteries tend to last longer, they charge up faster, and they're way more durable. But all that extra performance comes with a higher price tag. The traditional lead-acid battery, on the other hand, is definitely cheaper to buy up front, but you're trading that lower cost for a shorter life and the hassle of regular maintenance. Just look at that lifespan difference when you see it on a chart. On average, you're looking at maybe a couple of extra years of life from an AGM battery. So yeah, the initial hit to your wallet is a bit bigger, but since you're not replacing it as often, it could actually end up being the better value in the long run. It really just depends on your situation. Okay, now if you live anywhere that gets actual winter, listen up, because this is a big one. We're talking about cold cranking amps, or CCA. That's the measure of a battery's muscle to start your engine when it's freezing outside. And AGM batteries are just better at this. Their internal design lets them deliver that huge jolt of power more efficiently, right when you need it the most on a bitter cold morning. All right, just to make things interesting, you might have also heard people talk about gel batteries. They're another kind of sealed, maintenance-free battery, so let's just take a quick peek at where they fit into all this. So the main difference here is pretty simple. AGM uses that fiberglass mat we talked about, while gel batteries use a really thick, goopy, silica-based gel to hold the acid. This actually makes gel batteries super durable, but, and this is a big but, they are really picky about how they get charged. They need a slow, low current. AGM batteries, on the other hand, can handle much faster, higher charging currents, which is exactly why you see them in cars all the time and you almost never see gel batteries. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. It's time for a straightforward, balanced look at the pros and the cons of our two main players here, AGM and the classic lead acid. So looking at the pros for AGM, it really all boils down to performance and convenience. It's spill-proof, it's super tough against vibrations, it charges faster, and it lasts longer. A really cool one is that it holds its charge way better if your car just sits for a while. It only loses about 1 to 3% a month. And, like we just saw, it is the undisputed champion in extreme cold. But of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The biggest hurdle for most people is just that higher price tag. They're also a bit sensitive to being overcharged, which is why you really need a modern, smart charger that's compatible with AGM batteries. You can't just hook it up to any old clunker of a charger and expect it to live a long, happy life. All right, now for the old reliable. The biggest pro for a traditional lead-acid battery is just simple. It's cheap. This is technology that's been around forever, it's proven, it's widely available, and it gets the job done for a low upfront cost. Plus, it's not picky about chargers. It'll work just fine with older basic systems.
So, what's the catch? Well, the downsides are mainly about maintenance and durability. You're the one who has to remember to pop the caps and top up the water. There's always that small risk of acid leaking out and causing corrosion. They really don't like getting shaken around on rough roads, and their lifespan is just shorter. Oh, and if your car sits, they lose their charge way faster. We're talking up to 15% a month.
Okay, we've gone through the specs, we've weighed the pros and cons. Now it's time for the most important part. How do you take all this info and actually make the right choice for your car and the way you drive? So, this is it, the bottom line. It's not really about which battery is the best in some abstract way. It's about which one is the best for you. Let's break down a few scenarios to make it easy.
All right, you should seriously be looking at an AGM battery if any of these sound like you. If you have a newer car with that start-stop system, you basically need an AGM. If your car is packed with electronics, big screens, heated everything, you name it, AGM is the way to go. If you drive on rough roads a lot, live in a really cold place, or if your car sometimes sits for weeks without being started, the AGM is going to be the smarter, more reliable pick. But on the other hand, a good old-fashioned lead-acid battery is still a perfectly good, cost-effective choice if your situation is a bit simpler. If your number one concern is budget, if you've got an older, simpler car without a ton of electrical gizmos, and if you honestly don't mind checking the water levels every now and then, it'll do the job just fine.
And really, that's what it all boils down to. There is no one-size-fits-all best battery for every single person in every single car. The smart choice is all about matching the right battery technology to your car's needs, your local climate, and, of course, your budget.
And that brings us to the final question, the one only you can answer. Now that you know the real differences in performance, durability, and maintenance, is paying a bit more upfront for a battery that lasts longer, performs better, and is totally maintenance-free, is that trade-off worth it to you? The choice is all yours.